Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion for Saturday, August the 6th, 2016. A couple of areas to monitor here in the Atlantic. One here north of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. The other one over the Northeast Gulf. This area won't produce anything over the next several days, probably not even the next week. The negative phase of the MJO coming, well, not even coming through, it's just here, really suppressing convection out in this area, so I don't see anything developing out of the deep tropics anytime soon. You can see that here on the Saharan air layer analysis from the University of Wisconsin site. The main development region here saddled with very dry air, but look to the east, it's kind of cut off. The only significant Saharan air up here off the northwest coast of Africa and north of the Canary Islands even, so that being the case, and yes, there are some tropical waves here over Africa, it's going to be a while before this gets mixed out. But again, these little impulses, they do make it out into the Atlantic, and they end up somewhere. Where that is, we have to watch. And then if we go back to the wide shot, part of this energy in here was left over from tropical wave that became 96L, and this is the other tropical wave that followed. So really, it's this western part of the Atlantic basin that we really have to watch. Even though the water temperature through this region is very warm in the main development region, there's just something going on still that's keeping development out there suppressed. And I see people tweeting about this often and talking about it on social media elsewhere, on message boards, that, okay, well, we're not going to have any long track hurricanes, and they see the African dust, etc., and they say good, or good thing for the hurricane season, etc. And I see where they're coming from. I certainly understand that. But when you peel away the layers and you really look at it, it's not necessarily a good thing. And let me talk about that for a second. Let's assume for a moment that what became Earl, that made landfall down here in Belize, let's say that it did develop here into a Category 1 hurricane, and by the time it got over here, it was a Category 3 in this very warm water. Chances are, at some point, it could have turned north and caught a ride on the usually ever-present trough that sits out here over in the Atlantic and curved out to sea, especially if it had developed way out here and maybe hitched a ride farther to the east like this. So the earlier they develop, the more chance they have to turn out to sea, and I think people know that. So when you say, oh good, the main development region is going to be shut down, well, in general that makes sense, but you got to remember that tropical wave that became 97L came through and then eventually became Earl, and now is going to end up in the Pacific, some of that energy. I know it came over the Bay of Campeche there, but you get the idea. It's not always a good thing that they don't develop in the main development region, because then those tropical waves get farther to the west, and when they do spring to life, they're already close to land. And we're not just talking about the United States here. This tropical wave brought heavy rain showers here to the Dominican Republic, and that led to flooding, which killed one person already. So, you got to be careful when you say a blanket statement like, oh, main development region's closed for business, so we don't have to worry about anything. There's more than meets the eye, to coin a phrase from a popular toy and movie series. Anyway, in the Gulf of Mexico, not a tropical wave here. This did not come from Africa traversing the Atlantic. This is a surface trough, a focusing zone here of lower air pressure and convergence in the northeast Gulf of Mexico, where the water temperatures are very warm. A little bit of turning, maybe slight vorticity right in here near Appalachia Bay, but it's going to run out of time, I think, and whatever low does happen to form is just going to kind of mill around in this region and bring an incredible amount of rainfall. Exactly where that is going to be impossible to determine, and you can see on the large radar image here of the southeast, fairly heavy rains over parts of the Panhandle and over here along the Nature Coast of Florida near Cedar Key and points inland, not quite to the Orlando area, but this entire region through here could see excessive rainfall in the coming days. If I zoom in on this map, you can see that. The Weather Prediction Center used to be the Hydrometeorological Prediction Center, but now it's the Weather Prediction Center. And some of these bullseyes in here, 17 inches, 16 inches, that's just crazy. So pay attention to that, because even though we may not have a named storm out of it or even a depression, there's a lot of rainfall waiting potentially in this area to be dumped, and that in and of itself can produce problems. Okay, so don't ignore it. In the eastern Pacific, another system here, I think this is 93E, Invest area 93E. The E is for eastern Pacific, and they use these numbers 90 through 99 to designate these areas of further investigation. Here's Tropical Storm Yvette, no worries about that. This, however, has the potential to track up here and bring a lot of rainfall and some wind and just squally weather to parts of the Baja. Satellite picture shows very large area of disturbed weather for sure, and some of this energy in here is coming in from Earl. Just a little bit of a contributing source there. That's about it. If this was a little farther out over the water, it would have a better chance to develop, especially if it was down here. But probably going to become a tropical storm and bring this moisture up towards the Baja. I can show you that better on the computer model plot from the NCAR RAL site. And you can see most of the spread of the models generally suggesting a Gulf of California towards the Baja threat with this system. And the main issue here is going to be very heavy rain and squally conditions, rough seas locally. None of the computer guidance bringing this to hurricane intensity, which is interesting because the water temperatures down here are certainly warm enough, warmer than they should be for this time of year. But also, in the southwest U.S., northern Mexico, you need to be watching this because, of course, the transport of that moisture into the southwest could be a big problem. And I went out there a couple of years ago for a tropical storm. Well, it was actually two hurricanes that came in. They weakened to storms. Norbert and Odile, they both came into the southwest United States with their leftover energy much later in the season, in September it was. And that was really fascinating, actually, to be able to see that. Story for another day. But this, does bring moisture to parts of the southwest that usually don't see tropical dew points coming in. Very high precipitable water values in the atmosphere. So folks in western Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, eastern California here, southeast California, maybe even southern Nevada, keep an eye on that. I'll certainly be talking about it over the next few days to keep you up to date as best I can. All right, so no big issues coming from the tropics and on a large scale, no hurricanes developing. Just a few areas to watch and monitor, and keep an eye on those flood threats from those systems. Just really remember that even though they don't have a name or even a depression, tropical rainfall, very heavy at times, and that can be problematic if you're not prepared or if you're just acting dumb and drive through floodwaters, for example. No need to do that. Come on, use common sense, people. Have a good rest of your Saturday. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving me your attention for these few minutes that I'm able to chat with you, and I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.